The man walked into Pinnacle Tower at 2:47 p.m. on a Thursday in April, and Marcus Webb knew within 90 seconds that something was wrong. Not from any single thing. That was the point. It was never any single thing. It was the accumulation of small signals, each one individually explicable, each one producing the kind of tiny recalibration that most people perform unconsciously and then discard. Marcus did not discard them. He noted the visitor badge number as he handed it over. He noted the company name. He noted the floor the man said he was visiting. He noted the pause. 1 second, maybe slightly less, before the man gave his name. He noted the way the man's eyes moved when he thought nobody was watching. Then he picked up the phone and called the office the man had claimed to be visiting. Nobody there was expecting a consultant. Marcus made one more call. David Cho, head of corporate security, direct line. Memorized 2 years ago, just in case. 6 minutes later, the man was intercepted on the 31st floor. He was not a consultant. He was carrying a hardware implant in his laptop bag, a device the size of a thumb drive that would have created an invisible, unauthorized wireless access point in Pinnacle Tower's corporate network. A device identical to the ones that had already been planted, undetected, in 2 other firms in the region in the preceding 3 weeks. At Pinnacle Tower, it was never installed, because a security guard at a lobby desk had been paying attention. But to understand what it meant for Marcus Webb to be paying attention, to understand what 6 years of sitting at that desk had actually produced, and why it produced something that nobody with better credentials and a more impressive job title had been able to produce, you have to start at the beginning. Marcus Webb was 52 years old when the man walked through the door. He had spent the 12 years before his current job in Army Signals Intelligence, 12 years that had taken him to 3 continents and produced, in the specific way that sustained professional pressure produces things, a set of capabilities that were deeply embedded and not easily described to people who had not done the same work. The capabilities were not dramatic. They were not the capabilities of action movies or thriller novels. They were quieter and more durable than that. The ability to hold a complete environmental picture in his mind and register immediately when any element of that picture changed. The ability to read behavioral patterns, not individual behaviors which are always ambiguous, but patterns which are not. The ability to distinguish between the anxiety that produces false positives and the calm certainty that produces genuine threat assessment. The ability to pay attention, full, continuous, comprehensive attention, to a complex environment for hours without the mental drift that makes most sustained observation unreliable. These capabilities had been developed over 12 years of environments considerably more consequential than a commercial building lobby. Environments where the cost of missing something was not measured in money. He had left the Army at 40. The transition to civilian life had been, like most such transitions, a process of discovering that the skills he had developed in a specific context were not easily mapped onto the context that civilian employers understood. He had spent 3 years trying various roles: corporate security consulting, risk assessment, a brief and unsuccessful period in financial services where his skill set was genuinely irrelevant, before accepting that what he needed, for now, was a landing zone, a place where his capabilities were at least somewhat applicable, even if not fully utilized. A place that paid his bills and gave him time to figure out the next chapter. The security desk at Pinnacle Tower had been the landing zone. He had taken it intending to stay for 6 months. He had stayed for 6 years. The reason he stayed was not inertia, though his daughter Zara thought it was for the first 2 years and said so, with the specific directness of a 20-year-old who loves someone and cannot understand why they are not doing more with themselves. The reason he stayed was that the desk, properly inhabited, was interesting. This required explanation. An explanation Marcus had worked out for himself over the first year and had never fully articulated to anyone because it sounded, when you tried to say it aloud, like a rationalization for underachievement. The explanation was this. Pinnacle Tower was a complex system. It had 1,500 daily visitors, 47 corporate tenants, 7 floors of operational infrastructure, a service network of contractors and suppliers and maintenance personnel who moved through it on schedules that were largely consistent and occasionally not. It had rhythms, daily rhythms, weekly rhythms, seasonal rhythms, that were legible if you paid attention to them over time. It had a specific behavioral grammar, the way people who belonged in the building moved through it, the way people who were there for the first time moved through it, the way people who were performing belonging moved through it. Marcus had spent 6 years learning all of it, not because it was his job description. His job description was substantially simpler. Sign people in, check bags when required, monitor the camera feeds, respond to incidents. His job description could have been executed at a fraction of the cognitive engagement he brought to it. He brought the full engagement because the alternative, doing a job at a fraction of your capacity, day after day, as a way of waiting for something better, seemed to him a form of self-destruction that was slower but not less destructive than other forms. His father had told him when Marcus was 19 and his father was dying and saying the things a dying man says when he has run out of time for anything but essentials. Whatever room you are in, be entirely in it. Divided attention is just a slower way of being absent. Marcus had been entirely in the lobby of Pinnacle Tower for 6 years. He had learned the building completely. He learned the rhythms first, the arrival and departure patterns of each tenant, which shifted predictably with quarterly reporting cycles and earning seasons. He learned the delivery schedules of every regular supplier, not from documentation, but from observation. The pharmaceutical distributor who came Tuesdays and Fridays between 9:20 and 9:30 a.m., the office supplies contractor who came the first Monday of every month, the IT equipment company whose schedule was irregular but whose driver always wore the same red cap. He learned the maintenance patterns, which elevators were serviced when, which floor systems underwent routine work on which days, how those maintenance windows changed the flow of foot traffic through the lobby and which access points they opened that were normally closed. He learned the access card patterns, the specific behavioral signatures of different categories of user. Regular employees use their cards efficiently, with the automatic gesture of people doing something they have done 10,000 times. New employees hesitated slightly, aware of the technology in a way that regular users were not. Visitors used their temporary badges with varying degrees of comfort, and the comfort level was informative. He learned, above all, the visual grammar of people who belonged in a space versus people who were performing belonging. This was the most complex and the most important thing he learned, and it was the thing that could not be learned quickly. It required the long accumulation of baseline experience, thousands of observations of genuine, unperformed presence, before the deviations from it became reliably legible. By year 3, he could identify most deviations within 2 minutes of observation. By year 5, it was faster. He also read everything. Every security briefing that came through the building's management office, which most of the desk staff treated as informational noise, and he treated as operational data. Every incident report, every advisory from the regional corporate security network, he filed them in a mental architecture that was organized not by date but by pattern, by the behavioral signatures they described, the methods they documented, The specific tells that distinguished a social engineering attempt from a legitimate visitor who was simply having an anxious day. 3 weeks before the Thursday in April, a briefing had arrived describing a social engineering campaign targeting corporate office tenants in the Denver metro area. The campaign involved personnel presenting as consultants or contractors, using plausible company affiliations and legitimate-seeming scheduling to gain access to corporate networks through hardware implants. The briefing included descriptions of the bags commonly used to transport the implant hardware, a specific configuration that was professional-looking, but slightly off in a way the briefing's author had taken some care to articulate. Marcus had read the briefing twice. He had filed the bag description in his mental architecture next to the behavioral signatures the briefing described: the practiced confidence, the careful name-giving, the specific pattern of eye movement that characterized someone who was managing their environment rather than simply moving through it. 3 weeks later, the pattern walked through the door. Tell us in the comments where you are listening from. Please like, subscribe, and share HeartLine Stories. Every subscriber brings more stories like this. Now, back to the story. The man entered at 2:47 p.m. on a Thursday in April. He was well-dressed, dark suit, quality shoes, a laptop bag over one shoulder. He moved with the confident purpose of someone who visits corporate buildings regularly. Not hurried, not tentative, the easy forward motion of a person who is comfortable in professional environments. Marcus looked at him with the peripheral attention he used for everything, the gaze that took in a full scene without appearing to focus on any part of it. The first thing he registered was that the confidence was real, not performed from nothing. The man genuinely had ease in this kind of environment. He was not a first-timer. He had done this before. The second thing he registered was the seams. There was a construction to the confidence, a few milliseconds of deliberateness that genuine ease does not require. The eye movements were controlled in a way that natural comfort does not control them. When the man thought he was unobserved, his eyes made the specific survey of someone who is checking positions and exits rather than simply looking at a lobby. The third thing was the pause. 1 second, maybe slightly less, between when Marcus looked up from the desk and when the man gave his name. It was the pause of someone choosing, not the pause of someone arriving. Marcus noted the visitor badge number, 4471. He noted the company name. He noted the floor the man said he was visiting. He watched the man walk to the elevator and step in. Then he picked up the phone. The office the man had claimed to be visiting answered on the second ring. No, they said. They were not expecting a consultant. They had no scheduled visit today. Marcus opened the security briefing from 3 weeks ago. He found the bag description. He looked at the monitor showing the elevator lobby. The man's bag, visible for a moment before the elevator doors closed. It matched. He called David Cho. David Cho had been in corporate security for 18 years. He had started as an analyst, moved into operations management, spent 4 years in a federal contractor role that he did not discuss in detail, and arrived at his current position, head of corporate security for Pinnacle Tower's management company, with the specific competence of someone who has worked across multiple security contexts and learned what transfers between them and what does not. What transferred, in David's experience, was judgment, the ability to assess a situation accurately rather than anxiously, to distinguish between the vast majority of anomalies that were benign and the small minority that were not. Most people in security work developed this judgment slowly and incompletely because most security environments did not give them enough genuine incidents to calibrate against. They learned to manage the anxiety of not knowing, which was a different skill and a lesser one. David had developed the judgment. He knew what it felt like in the voice of someone who had it versus someone who was working from anxiety. When Marcus Webb called him on a Thursday afternoon and said, in a voice that was completely calm and completely specific, "Badge 4471, the Nexus integration point, the 31st floor, the bag matches the April 7th briefing description." David recognized the judgment. He was moving before he finished the call. The man was intercepted at 2:53 p.m. on the 31st floor, 6 minutes after he had entered the building. He was professional about it. He did not panic, did not make dramatic claims, did not produce documentation that turned out to be forged. He was cooperative in the specific way of people who have been caught and have calculated that cooperation is the optimal response to being caught. Ewan, he confirmed within 20 minutes, and in the presence of the building security and the 2 police officers David had called, that he was not a consultant and that the device in his bag was what David said it was. The device was a network hardware implant, a wireless access point in a package the size of a USB charging adapter. Plugged into any accessible port in a corporate network, it would create an invisible bridge to an external server, allowing remote access to the network from outside the building. It was designed to be indistinguishable from a standard office accessory and to operate passively, emitting no unusual traffic that standard network monitoring would flag. The investigation that followed established that the same implant, from the same campaign, had been planted in 2 other corporate tenants in the Denver metro area in the preceding 3 weeks. Neither of those tenants had identified the device at the time of planting. Both were notified when Marcus's call triggered a regional security alert, and both found and removed their devices within 48 hours. At Pinnacle Tower, the device had never been installed. David Cho came back to the lobby at 4:30 p.m. He came alone, no assistant, no entourage, just David in his gray jacket with his phone in his breast pocket, sitting down across from Marcus at the security desk in the chair that was intended for visitors and that David had, in 4 years of working in this building, never sat in before. "Tell me how you saw it," David said. Marcus told him. He told it in the order it had happened. The confident movement that had its seams showing, the pause before the name, the eye movements when the man thought himself unobserved, the office call that confirmed no appointment, the bag comparison against the briefing. David listened without interrupting. When Marcus finished, David was quiet for a moment. "The briefing," he said. "The April 7th briefing. Most of the desk staff get that briefing and read the subject line." "I know," Marcus said. "You read it." "I read all of them." "Why?" Marcus looked at the lobby, at the door, at the monitors showing the building from every angle, the service entrance, the parking level, the elevator banks, the corridors, the building he had spent 6 years learning. "Because the whole point of what I do," he said, "is that something might happen. Not that it will. Statistically, most shifts, nothing happens. But the value of what I do is entirely in the moment when something does happen. And being ready for that moment requires treating every shift as if it might be the one that matters." He paused. "If something happened while I was not paying attention, it would not be because I was unlucky. It would be because I had decided that today was probably a normal day. I don't make that decision. Every day, I don't make that decision." David looked at him for a long moment. "What did you do before this?" he said. "Army Signals Intelligence. 12 years. And you are working the security desk." "It is a good desk," Marcus said. David was quiet for a moment. Then he reached into his jacket and produced a piece of paper, folded once, professionally printed, the kind of document that has been prepared in advance by someone who knew how a conversation was going to go. "I have had a position open for 4 months," he said. "Senior Security Analyst, Threat Intelligence Team. I have not filled it because I have not found the right person." He set the paper on the desk between them. "That is the salary range and the role description." Marcus looked at the paper. He did not pick it up immediately. "What does the Threat Intelligence Team do?" he said. "We analyze behavioral patterns, pre-incident indicators. We build the picture of what a threat looks like before it fully materializes, so that when it walks through a door, someone is ready to see it." Marcus looked at him. "Yes," he said. "I would like that." He called his daughter Zara from the parking lot before he drove home. She was 23, finishing a master's degree in criminology at the University of Denver, and she had been telling her father for 2 years that he was wasted at the security desk. She said it with love, with the specific love of a daughter who has watched someone she admires operating below their capacity and finds the waste almost physically uncomfortable. She had never said it critically, never said it impatiently. She had said it the way you say something true about someone you love, with care and repeatedly, because it was true, and because she thought eventually he would hear it. He had heard it. He had agreed with it, privately, for most of those 2 years. What he had not been able to explain to her, what he had not found the right words for, in the conversations they had in her apartment over takeout or in his living room on Sunday evenings, was that the desk had not been a waste, that the 6 years had been a form of preparation that he could not have done anywhere else, that the knowledge of the building, its rhythms, its grammar, its specific behavioral vocabulary, was the only thing that had made this afternoon possible. "You cannot shortcut the learning," his father had told him. "You cannot learn a thing without spending time with it. The time is not wasted. The time is the work." "Dad," Zara said when he had told her what had happened, "you caught a spy." "Social engineer," Marcus said. "There is a technical distinction. You stopped a corporate cyber attack. I made a phone call. David Cho stopped the attack. Because you called him. Because I was paying attention," Marcus said. "And because 3 weeks ago I read a briefing that most people skimmed." Zara was quiet for a moment. "Are you proud?" she asked. Marcus sat in his car in the parking lot of Pinnacle Tower, the building he had spent 6 years learning, the building he was about to leave for something that matched more of what he had to offer. He thought about his father, about whatever room you were in, be entirely in it. "Yes," he said, "I am proud." "Good," Zara said, and then, "Granddad would have been proud too." Marcus looked out the windshield at the building, at the lobby where the glass doors were catching the late afternoon light. "Yes," he said, "I think he would have been." He gave 1 week's notice, not because he owed it, the situation warranted immediate transition if David had wanted that, but because Marcus did not leave things unfinished. The desk needed a handover. His replacement needed to be briefed, not just on the procedures and the camera system and the visitor management software, but on the building, on the rhythms and the patterns and the behavioral grammar that his replacement would need years to learn on their own and that Marcus could at least begin to transmit in a week of structured attention. He wrote it all down. Not the job description, the actual knowledge, the delivery schedules, the tenant arrival patterns and how they shifted with the financial calendar, the access card behavioral signatures and what distinguished new employees from malfunctioning cards, the specific eye-line behavior of the pharmaceutical distributor's Tuesday driver, who always looked left twice when he entered the lobby because of a condition Marcus had deduced was partial vision loss on the right side. Not anything threatening, just a human detail that was part of the complete picture. He wrote 12 pages. His replacement read them and said, This is more than they trained me on. The training teaches you the procedure, Marcus said. This is the building. On his last Friday, he arrived at 5:45 and worked through to 5:30 p.m. A full day, the same as every other day. He signed in the same people he always signed in. He said good morning to the ones who said good morning back, which was about a third of them, which was exactly the proportion it had always been. At 5:30, he stood up from the desk. He put on his jacket. He looked at the lobby one more time. The glass doors, the monitors, the visitor's chair across the desk where David Cho had sat 3 days ago. He thought about 6 years of mornings, about 1,500 times signing in a building's worth of people, most of them never knowing his name, most of them never needing to. About the specific satisfaction, quiet, daily, genuine, of doing the work correctly, of being entirely in the room. His replacement, a young man named Andre who had been shadowing him for a week, was sitting at the desk. "Good luck," Marcus said. "Thank you," Andre said. "The 12 pages, I'll keep reading them." "Read them more than once," Marcus said. "The building changes slowly. The patterns shift. What you read today will mean something different in a year." Andre nodded. Marcus walked out through the glass doors for the last time as a security desk employee. He did not look back. He was already thinking about Monday. The threat intelligence team had 4 members when Marcus joined. By his second year, it had 7. The growth a reflection of what the team was producing, which was a form of institutional attention that translated directly into incidents prevented. Marcus's specific contribution was behavioral pattern analysis, the systematic examination of pre-incident behavioral signatures across the building's network of tenants and their visitor data, looking for the kinds of patterns that the April Thursday had demonstrated could be detected before they became crises. He built a framework for this that was partly based on his Army training and partly based on 6 years of sitting at a lobby desk learning the specific behavioral grammar of a complex commercial environment. The framework was not algorithmic. It could not be automated. It required the kind of judgment that came from experience and attention, and the specific willingness to trust what you observed, even when what you observed was difficult to fully articulate. David Cho presented the framework's results to the Building Management Company's board at the end of Marcus's second year. In that year, the framework had flagged 7 pre-incident behavioral patterns, 4 of which had been investigated and found to warrant further security response. 2 of those 4 had produced interventions that, in the assessment of the investigations that followed, had prevented significant security incidents. The board approved expanding the threat intelligence team. They also approved a new job title for Marcus, Principal Security Intelligence Analyst. It came with a salary that was, Zara calculated when Marcus told her, approximately 3 times what he had been earning at the security desk. 3 times, she said. Approximately, he said. Dad. Yes. You should have done this years ago. Marcus thought about this, about the 6 years at the desk, about 12 pages of operational knowledge that Andre was still reading, about the specific thing that sitting at a desk for 6 years, paying complete attention, had produced in him, the completeness of the picture, the depth of the pattern recognition, the ability to see the seams in a practiced confidence within 90 seconds of observation. No, he said, I should not have. She looked at him. The 6 years were not waiting, he said. They were the work that made the rest possible. Zara looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded, slowly, with the specific expression of someone who has just understood something they thought they already understood. Granddad, she said. Yes, Marcus said. Whatever room you are in. Be entirely in it, she finished. Marcus looked at his daughter, at the 23-year-old who had sat with him in his living room and told him, with love and without impatience, that he was wasted at the desk, and who was now understanding why he had not been. Yes, he said, exactly that. This has been a HeartLine Stories original. If this story moved you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Write to us at heartlinestories@gmail.com. Every heart has a story worth telling. This is HeartLine Stories, where yours matters.